Welcome to Amazon Legends, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became power sellers, also providers specializing in helping sellers, aggregators that acquire sellers, and former Amazonians will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here is your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. And my next guest today is another former Amazonian. And he is someone who is not going to BS around the Amazon A9 algorithm or anything else, because this is what he knows very well about. So we're going to get into it. He set up Amazon Singapore, worked with large 3P sellers, and he spent 6 years at Amazon. So in his words, when he's talking about A9 algorithm, he's not hypothesizing. So he knows what he's talking about. So today he's the founder and CEO of Ecom10, which is a listing creative platform. And it's 2 years old at this point. And when he's not working and working on algorithms and other things that we're going to talk about in a minute, he likes to play and watch football. So with that, everybody, meet my guest, Max Sinclair. Welcome to the show, Max.
Great to be here, Nick. Great to be here.
Well, I'm dying to hear what you're going to talk about, because what we will talk about is the next revolutionary thing on Amazon that's going to change the shopping experience for Amazon customers, and it's called Rufus, which is the virtual shopping assistant. Now, of course, shoppers are shopping for products, and the products are sold, 65% of them are by third-party sellers. So third-party sellers have to know how to get Rufus to assist their products to be sold, right? So then Amazon has the counterpart of Rufus to work with sellers through Seller Central, that's called Cosmo. So, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to discuss how sellers can use Cosmo so that Rufus can help their products to be sold the most. So tell us, Max, tell us the whole story. I have heard just a little bit about this, so I am dying to hear what this is about. And someone like me who has no idea, imagine as a seller, where do you get started with this?
Sure. So I'll start by defining some terms. So we've got these two concepts. One's called Rufus, one's called Cosmo. They're related, but they're not the same. So Rufus, as you mentioned, is the kind of front-end customer-facing. When I say customer, I mean consumer, everyone shopping on Amazon facing part. And Rufus is a conversational-based search where the customer will, rather than the old days of typing in a keyword, they will interact with Amazon like ChatGPT. Amazon, is in the stages of rolling it out. Beta tested on a number of customers already in the US. Feedback to this point, to date, we're in June, has been mixed, but I'm absolutely positive Amazon will get this right. And the way I like to think about this, as you mentioned, I was in Amazon from 2016 to 2022. I was there for this kind of rapid adoption of mobile. And I remember, whilst I was at Amazon, we were constantly thinking about how mobile kind of became a channel, and suddenly, from being 20% of kind of search volume when I started, mobile now accounts for 80% of searches begun on mobile. So that transition people have had to a kind of a new interface of shopping and searching, I believe, is going to be even more radical and even more quick with conversational search. We've all used ChatGPT. It's an incredibly intuitive and friendly kind of interface, and it's going to be a lot more helpful for customers. So that's kind of Rufus, and we can talk about that. And then the second thing is Cosmo. So Cosmo, slightly confusing because it's also using large language models, which is what ChatGPT, what this kind of technology is, but it's the back end brain, if you like, behind not just Rufus, but soon all search on Amazon. And the key thing about Cosmo is rather than keyword just purely matching on keywords, using this kind of advancements in AI we've seen over the past 2 years, what Amazon has been working on, simultaneously, I imagine different teams, is not just building like a chat interface for the customers to interact with, but also how can they employ this new kind of technology to shift what actually to surface customers when they're looking for something. And with Cosmo, they've said that they've rolled Cosmo is, as I mentioned, it's not about keyword matching, it's more about intent-based matching. They have all of the data on all of the customers. Famously, they know if a customer is pregnant before, she knows she's pregnant, right, on Amazon. They have all the data, all their purchasing history, and they are using this data to not just match what what keywords and A9 and all this stuff that we've done in the past, but to understand that customer, what that customer is most likely going to be looking for when they put in what their intent is behind their search, when they put in a query, and surfacing to them relevant content. And for Cosmo, they've said they've tested this out on 10% of US traffic, so it's been it's been tested much wider already than Rufus. And they've kind of publicly stated they've seen a 0.7% increase in conversion from using Cosmo compared to traditional A9. So this is also being rolled out as a separate but related thing. And both of these things both of these are super exciting elements, which which I've been spending a lot of time thinking about, and happy to get into.
Of course, it's in what I picked up from what you were describing is keyword search to intent-based search.
Yes.
So this Cosmo or Rufus, both, right, at the end of the day, is about knowing what you plan to do.
Yeah, so I think Cosmo is really the how sellers used to try and optimize for A9 is and going on Jungle Scout or Helium 10 or whoever it would be, and finding the right long tail keywords and trying to rank on certain keywords. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion among many, this is archaic. This is kind of the one form of technology. We're now moving on to an entirely different form of technology, which is intent-based matching. And there's various kind of methods we've been exploring at eContent, and I'm happy to talk about of how you can optimize for this intent-based matching. But the broad meta point to think about is now just more important to understand who your customer is, understand your customer profile, who they are, why they buy you, and make your listings talk to them. And the AI is going to be is now smart enough to pick that up, using its conversational based intelligence that these AIs now have, and deliver that to that profile of customer when they're searching for your product. I fully expect the result of this to be, if I was to say what a good listing is going to look like 6 months down the line in Amazon. Nowadays we have these really weird titles where we kind of cram in all these keywords, and you have the brand, and then you have like I'm looking at a kind of office phone. You'd have like office phone, desktop phone. This, like no human speaks or thinks like that. And my absolute conviction is we will move to a world where titles and descriptions are written for humans, written for how they use the product, in an office setting, whatever it is. And the AI will, we've seen this already, will be rewarding understanding that intent more and surfacing that better.
So, okay, so let's break this down into different phases of how one goes about building a listing, right? So
yes.
First thing you do is you go do competitor research, right? So you look at who else is selling the kind of product that you are selling. And also alongside that, you have your customer avatar.
Yes.
And all you're trying to do is identify the kind of keywords that will drive you business. But why are we doing all this? And at the end of the day, when the dust settles, and this is what I've seen over and over, heard from many people over and over, that a good seller at the end of the day knows which 10 to 12 keywords are driving him business, and always goes after them, tries to make sure that getting the right kind of content and the right kind of campaigns running on them so that he's getting the traction. It's all about keyword-centric approach. For a brand new seller, it's an unknown, so you go after a huge number of keywords, then run your campaigns, and then analyze the numbers and see where the business is coming from, and then start optimizing from there. So that's the general process. How does Cosmo factor into this?
I'm going to explain the technical case why this doesn't matter anymore, and then we can discuss kind of maybe the reasoning behind it. But if you're using a large language model technology, which, you know, a generative AI, which Cosmo is based on, keywords don't matter. And the reason they don't matter is that LLMs, generative AI, is token based. An AI, you know, works on numbers. It doesn't have words as input, it has numbers. So when you put in a string, such as your keyword, let's say I'll take this, you know, black office phone, or whatever your long tail keyword is. What's happening when the customer puts that into search? What's happening with Cosmo is that it's going to break it down for processing in its generative AI algorithm. It's going to convert that into tokens, so it's now numbers, not words, and then B is going to compress the tokens. So there's many reasons why AI models will compress tokens: speed, computational cost, lots of reasons why this happens. But basically, what the customer's putting into the search is not the same thing that the AI model is eating. The AI model is eating a compressed version of the tokens, and the tokens may be the full word, it may be parts of words, it may be two words. Like the way that the AI model maps tokens to words, it's not a one-to-one relationship. So the one thing I can guarantee sellers is that on Cosmo, you know, you're having some compression somewhere and some numerical format which is going in and then being layered on with all the other data about the customer, their gender, their ethnicity, their location, all this stuff where they're trying to find the understand the intent of that customer search. So the keywords very, very soon will not matter, just by how the fundamental technology works.
So, okay, everything you described is, as you labeled it, technical, which does not really say anything.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that if you imagine you have this strategy in the past where you're saying, I'm going to take office phone, do you speak another language? Nick, you must.
Yeah, my native language I speak, of course.
So let's imagine in your native language, you're putting in office phone, into Turkish, and you're putting those keywords into your listing as well. And some sellers do this, right? The tokens that you're working on, if it's the same language, probably going to be the same tokens, right? So you've already lost that, if you're selling on Amazon Spain, the Spanish keyword, it's gone, because the AI is working in tokens, not working in language. So other things that, maybe the AI has realized that black isn't an important, or maybe it thinks it is or it isn't important, but maybe cordless, all these kind of elements that you're putting in, you don't know how the AI is weighting that in the compression. My fundamental technical point is AIs don't work on a keyword basis. So actually, you're wasting your time if you're trying to, get keywords to rank on an LLM. And a very easy way to prove this to anybody is if you go into ChatGPT, give it 20 keywords, try and make it come out with a context with those exact 20 keywords. It's going to struggle, and the reason it struggles is not how this stuff is built, right? So that's kind of point number one. Point number two is, as we mentioned, it's taking multiple other factors now into the search. It's taking in images. So A9 could never read images before. Now Cosmo can understand images. It can understand the context of the image. So for example, I'm wearing a beige polo shirt. If I had listed this as a black polo shirt on Amazon, but the photo is a beige polo shirt, the customer types in black polo shirt, they're not going to get my one come up because the AI has understood that my one is beige from the image. So even if all the text is black, it's not going to show it, which is different from how it works at the moment. You know, you type in or depending on when the customer's
Hold
listening
on a
to it.
minute. I want to say something. So, okay, I understand the contextual search. So images are being translated into search. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what I heard you just say is if the photo of the shirt is beige and you are looking for black polo
Yeah.
shirt, this thing is not going to come up. I'm going to type in
Mhm.
black polo shirt, right?
My point is, at the moment, depending on when the customer is listening to this, definitely if they're listening in Europe, well, most likely if they're listening in Europe and they're listening this week, Cosmo, you're still on normal A9, you're not on Cosmo, most likely, right? Because it's being rolled out slowly. We don't exactly know how it's being rolled out, but it's being rolled out. So if you were to type into Amazon a year ago, black polo shirt, you're actually going to get a full range of colors because sellers will be saying, I've got a red polo shirt, but I know black's a keyword. I'm going to bid on black. Or I've got a Reebok shoe, but I know Nike's a brand, so I'm going to bid on Nike. I'm going to bid on Nike. I'm going to put Nike in my description somewhere. Like all this kind of stuff, right? What's going to happen 6 months from now is that the AI is going to take in all these different inputs. It's going to weight images. It's going to have some weighting towards the images compared to just having the text, and therefore it's going to be able to say, I'm only going to surface to the customer black polo shirts or Nike shoes or whatever the example is from not only understanding the text, but understanding the image. So that's another reason why keywords, beyond the technical point that I laid out about how LLMs don't work in keywords. But the other point is there's many more inputs in the listing now, the visual inputs, which are going to be weighted into the output. And that's going to be as important as nailing your keyword. So you're going to want to have an image of your office phone in an office setting, if you're selling that, in order to give, to show the AI that is where, your product belongs on that page rank with office phones. So having the keywords is no longer alone is going to be enough.
Okay. So I just want to understand something because when you sit at your desk and you have nothing to do with Amazon,
Yeah.
Rufus is not going to be doing anything because you have no connection. So there has to be some interactions, obviously. So you take the app, and what are you doing with Rufus? Are you speaking into it, or are you typing into it, or what are you?
It's a great question, and I think Jeff Bezos is a genius for many reasons. But one of the many reasons is that he's been betting on voice for a very long time, in the form of Alexa, and I believe, I can't speak for Andy Jassy, but I know the vision of Jeff was that shopping is all going to be voice at some point. So I think voice search will become more prevalent on Amazon, I imagine. So I think that's a very good one. But at the moment, in the pilots that they've rolled out, it's a bit like using ChatGPT. It's integrated into the search bar, but you can search for events. So let's say you're throwing a party and say, hey, like I'm throwing a party, July 4th is coming up, for July 4th, and it will be able to surface your products across different categories: hot dogs, bunting, barbecue sauce, or cross-category products. Number one. Number two, when you're on a specific product, you'll be able to ask it questions. So you've landed on your hot dog and you say, hey, is this vegan? What's the meat percentage? All of these kind of questions that you may have on a product. Rufus, in theory, is going to be intelligent enough to answer questions, product-specific questions. So they bill it as a AI shopping assistant. So it's like you're going in store and you're talking to a shop assistant about specific products. And they can also help you to kind of navigate the entire store and pair things in a better way. And so that's kind of how they bill it.
Okay. So you can be speaking into Rufus, or you could be typing into Rufus.
Yes.
Your plan: I'm going to go away in a week, and I'm
Mhm.
going skiing, and I've never been there. So you just like some people sit and talk to
Yes.
ChatGPT, by typing. So you can be talking. Okay, so that's the input. So that's what I'm trying to do. What's the input? And therefore, how do we satisfy that input? That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So Rufus is taking this in
Yeah.
and then matching it up to what sellers will provide as content, right?
Yeah.
That's where Cosmo comes in, right?
So the output on Rufus, which is a very big difference compared to if you do a product search now, you're going to get 50 results on a page. You're going to get 2 lines of sponsored products, maybe a sponsored banner, and 50 results similar to your product. On a Rufus, what you're going to get is 5, maybe less, specific items that match your unique search. So rather than having what you may feel is a paralyzing amount of choice, you put in, I bought these headphones on Amazon recently in the last few months. I put in headphones, so many headphones. As a consumer, it's literally impossible to decipher which ones are right. I knew that I didn't want cheap ones. I'm going to buy something which is slightly more expensive, but do I know the seller isn't just hiking the price for no reason? It's extremely complicated to do, right? But with a Rufus, you can talk to and say, hey, like, I want headphones. I want kind of, mid-range, high quality. You could explain your shop, and it's going to give you back a curated list. And where Cosmo comes in is it's going to be a curated list based, the Cosmo is kind of the brain behind the recommendation, and it's going to understand me as a shopper on Amazon. I've been shopping on Amazon for years. It's going to understand the price point I normally go for, which is probably like mid-range. I don't want a bargain. I want something more good quality. It's going to understand all these different factors. It probably has my age, knows my location, it knows my gender, it knows all of this stuff. So it will give me headphones which it thinks are the matched best for me. And therefore, working backwards from that as a customer, what I need to put in a listing, if you're launching a headphones for 30-year-old men in tech, you want to have a 30-year-old looking guy in tech on your kind of product listing. So you want to map that end user so it's very clear for Cosmo who your product serves. So to answer your very first question, which is a flow of, you start with Amazon now by where are the keyword gaps, where can I list? I think this strategy is going to become less and less important. And what's going to become more and more important is talking to customers, understanding a pain that they face in their day-to-day, a bit like Dyson did. You have a Hoover, you need to replace the bags, that's really annoying. And you build a product which is specific to solving a use case for a specific demographic. And that is what's going to be most beneficial in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand. Frankly, let's face it, human beings are not very good at communication. And, in fact, there are a lot of statistics, right? So people speak their language with 50 words or 100 words or 200 words, or some ridiculous small number. So they do not express themselves clearly and very well. In addition, there are cultural issues. People don't really, they are shy. They don't want to say certain things. So as a result, the communications break down. So what I'm hearing is when you're looking to purchase something, instead of expecting the shopper to narrow it down to the keywords, which they are not good at, finding
exactly.
and using, now it becomes a conversation, and that conversation AI takes and turns into turns into intent, and then based on that intent presents the products.
So
okay,
Rufus,
that part is clear.
Rufus makes it a conversation. What Cosmo does is it doesn't use the keywords, as you say, different languages, different energy in expressing exactly what you want. Yeah. Cosmo understands the intent behind the user query. What is this person actually searching for? Who are they, and what are they searching for? I'm going to give them that, and they've proved that they have increased sales by 0.7% in testing on 10% of Amazon US traffic, which is billions in potential additional revenue for Amazon from just getting how do you surface the right products better to customers.
So, but you know what I'm thinking now? I don't yet, like I said, I don't know anything about Cosmo yet. So if the shopper is on one side talking
Yes.
to Rufus about what they want, when then the seller should be on the other side talking to Cosmo about what their product is for.
Right. So it's a great point, and Cosmo has been in their documentation. They've said that Cosmo is trained on the Q&A, so that's a very important piece that sellers should have beefed up on their listing, because the customer's going to ask a question in Rufus, and hopefully you've answered that question in great detail already in your Q&As, and it can use that data to share it. But this is why it's going to be very important for sellers to generate lots of lifestyle images demonstrating the product in different scenarios, with the target demographic in the images, A+ content with more details, infographics where, as Amazon can read words and infographics that highlight the key details that you want to bring out of the listing. So this is why the product listings are going to become more and more important to get right.
Yeah. So, okay, I understand. So this is almost like, really, from what everything I hear, the product listings are going to turn into not necessarily a product listing, but a product experience, because there will be a lot of different examples of how that product is used, because that's what Cosmo will bring and marry to the input provided by Rufus.
Yeah.
And frankly, the search results, I can now see why you would only get 5, 6, because that 5, 6 alone will give you God knows how many different types of experiences that you can have just studying those listings. But I'm still not clear on, I understand the Q&A, but we're still talking about typing, right? So sitting down and almost like being interviewed within Seller Central by Cosmo about your product, right?
You're talking from a seller perspective.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that the inputs are going to change from a seller perspective. I think Amazon is really incentivized to make listing on Amazon as simple as possible. And I would imagine the listing experience on Amazon to become more and more frictionless. And I would imagine Amazon using AI, a different team using different AI to scan the web. And this is just me hypothesizing. I don't know this, but I've been in these rooms and been in these conversations, so I know roughly what I'm talking about. Scan the web, understand the products from different sources that they trust, use that to enrich the listings. If not, enrich the listings on the front end to the customers, because they don't want to get in trouble. They can use this to enrich the listings on the back end. No problem. Their algorithms, they can do whatever they want with that. FDC or whatever it's called, pending. But I would imagine different teams, like the ones I work closely with in IDQ, item data quality, to also be working on inventive ways you could use technology to better help Amazon to understand the products. So that would be an almost internal work stream. And then you have Cosmo, which is how do you have the best common sense algorithm for search? And then you have Rufus as how do we build the best UX for customers to interact using the same technology. But these teams will all be training their own models and fine-tuning their own models.
Yeah. Okay, so again, now understanding what Rufus will do, is Rufus will really become a true shopping assistant. It's going to understand what you want, and then it's going to get you the stuff.
I think the best example of this, by the way, if you want to have a glimpse into the future today, is to use Perplexity AI. If you've heard of Perplexity, it's a new search, LLM-based search. It's, in my humble opinion, far better than Google. You can talk to it. I will, use Perplexity 2-3 times a day. I will talk to it. I'll just press record and ask it a question, and I'll get the answer. And all of its answers are referenced from where the sources. So it's hyper accurate, much more accurate than some other AI tools that I've seen, but also it's much quicker to get to that fundamental answer than a Google search, which would take some scrolling and looking around. So I would say, if you want to see how this technology can work, how Rufus could work, and probably will work in 6 months' time, go and like try Perplexity for your Google search, and you'll get it immediately. How like a conversational based search can be really, really powerful and much better than what we have at the moment.
So to feed that information into Rufus, Cosmo's input is, so are you talking about like today, if you're creating a listing, you have all the the famous Amazon templates, right? So that's how Amazon gets the information. So is that going to go away or not?
I don't know. There's a tension in Amazon internally, and it existed when I was there, and there will be even more now, between making it as frictionless as possible to list products, because you want to have as much selection as possible. And that's one arm of the business and set of people who will be advocating for that. And then the other friction point is getting good quality data in order to make the customer search and customer browse experience as good as possible. So there's those two competing forces and principles in Amazon. And they try and have this happy medium. I can't imagine that they just do away with all of the flat files to accurately list a product. They also have the legal implications of they can't misrepresent products. So you don't want to start, well, I say this, you don't want to start AI generating random stuff, but they've done that with some listings, right? They started to rewrite listings in AI and put in false attributes. So, and it's a wild west at the moment. Who knows where all of this is going to land?
I have a question for my listeners. Are you experiencing cash flow challenges with your Amazon business? Well, silly question. Who is not, right? So let me introduce you to Viably, a unique solution tailored for Amazon sellers and e-commerce enterprises. By connecting your Seller Central or Shopify account, you can promptly access funding along with a variety of financial tools, all for a flat fee. It's as simple as that. And for my listeners, they are offering an extra $1,500 in funding for eligible applications. Start your quick and easy application today at runviably.com/legends. And that's runviably.com/legends. Actually, only today, I was recording with another guest, and he's a seller, and also he's got a SaaS platform for content syndication for different marketplaces. And he was telling me about how much he's trying to distance himself from Amazon, primarily because he doesn't want 95% of his revenue to come from just one channel. Yeah. So he's trying to go. But one of the things that he mentioned that he dislikes very much, he says AI is now going in, changing people's, updating people's listings, and in the process using some words that Amazon algorithm picking up and suppressing the listings. Those are the things that are happening right now.
Definitely. And what my one big insight to people when they think about Amazon is it's not one beast. It's not some massive monster gorilla. It is, in fact, a series of many, many individuals, millions of individuals, hundreds of thousands of individuals in the business and tech units. And all of these individuals are motivated in very different ways. And you have different senior individuals, someone in charge of Seller Central, someone in charge of Cosmo, people in charge of different things, all advocating for their own areas. So it's hard to, and I think about this as a SaaS platform. What are Amazon going to do? Are Amazon going to eat my dinner? All these questions I talk to investors about all the time. It's actually it's a harder question to answer, because it's not just what's Amazon going to do. Is what is the senior vice president of Seller Central? What is he or she motivated to do? What are they doing? What is vendor, the head of vendor, the head of Amazon own brand doing when it comes into all of this. It just makes it a lot more complicated. And it means that not everything is predictable or logical almost in the actions they take, because they're humans and they're motivated by getting the next promotion, or they're motivated because they're pissed off at some specific thing and they just want to fix it, and it's been bugging them for 5 years. Like, who knows, right? But there's many reasons.
Yeah. I mean, one thing for certain with Amazon is this: things are always changing, and when you have a machinery, and my favorite example is if you want to make a stool, you just get a flat surface and 3 legs, and then you'll have the perfect stool. But good luck adding a 4th leg without making it wobble, right? So Amazon has God knows how many legs,
Yeah.
and when you add, and they keep adding new ones. Okay, so am I hearing from you then, Max? You are going to feed information into Amazon through Seller Central for your listings in your usual way, but the nature of your content has to be as such that Cosmo can translate that into contextual matches.
Exactly.
Based on
Totally
what
right.
Rufus is providing.
Totally right. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you do that then? As you said, no longer those funny titles. Now, okay, now you've got the situation. Okay, 200 characters here, 1,000 characters here, 2,000 characters here, A plus. So that means that Amazon is going to open up a lot more ways to submit more content then. Is that right?
I don't think it necessarily has to submit more content. I can talk about the 3 ways that we are helping customers at eContent to do this, and I will again preface this with it's a fast-moving space, and there's many. This is just my opinion, but we've seen this in the data. So number 1, we talked about quite a bit, is intent-based matching. So you really want to understand your audience more than ever, and you want to speak to them in the text. So it's not just about cramming all your long tail keywords. Like I saw, and I'm not going to name any names, but I know some software platforms, they're just like cramming loads of keywords into ChatGPT from using ChatGPT and a bunch of keywords using RAG, putting that in a listing. It's going to have terrible results because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't read for a human. And these AIs are smart. They're the ones Cosmo, that they can understand that this lacks. Well, they can firstly understand that the conversion, the click-through rates are lower, the people are spending less time on the listing, they're adding it less to the basket, and therefore all of these other factors will come in to not help the listing. So you may have a tiny halo effect at some point for having tons of keywords in your listing, but it's not going to last. What's going to be sustainable in the long term is understanding the customer who you're selling to and writing it to them, and matching the different use cases that they're going to be searching to in a broad sense. Number 1. Number 2 is the visual content. So creating lots of images, you could either use AI, you could either get photographers, however you want to do this, but having images of your target demographic, your product in multiple different scenarios. I was just with a customer earlier. He was selling racks, doing racks in the kitchen. He's doing racks in the warehouse. All the different scenarios that you could potentially be buying these racking for is going to be important for Cosmo to understand the different. If you have a 50-year-old woman who's clearly a mother of 3 searching on Amazon, compared to if you're on Amazon B2B and have a business searching on Amazon, like they could actually have the same product, but having the different contexts in the visual content is going to be helpful. And then lastly, it's about monitoring and optimization. So what makes this very exciting is LLMs drift over time. So they get better, they get worse just by the nature of the technology. Forgetting the fact that Amazon is going to be constantly updating and refining these models. And as you say, with the stool analogy, which I love, you change a little bit of an AI model over here, and it has this unintended consequence somewhere else. And the reason is these are black boxes. Even the best AI scientists don't fully understand how these models work. Once it's all compressed into tokens, it is a black box. the exact logics that these models are applying to get their outputs. You can't kind of trace it back through them. And so therefore monitoring how your content is performing and tweaking against what is working in the rest of your catalog. So those are the three broad strategies that we're employing.
Okay. Well, bottom line, more lifestyle images, ideally 3D, because I know you can also do 3D on Amazon, right?
Yes.
And write stories, really. I mean, that's what it's so just like you would tell somebody, or this is what it's for.
Exactly.
So just tell as much about your product as possible within the allotted space that Amazon provides,
Yeah.
rather than pack it with keywords and try to
Exactly.
match it.
I mean, remember, these AIs have not just passed a Turing test, they've smashed a Turing test. The Turing test being, could you fool a human talking to a robot? They've not just passed this, but they also passed a reverse Turing test where they can identify humans in a room full of AIs. There's some really interesting videos on kind of people programming this, and with one human, one, ChatGPT, Claude, and a bunch of different AIs, and all of them trying to work out which is a human in the mix. So they get that right as well. So these things are uber intelligent, and therefore Amazon are very much incentivized to help sell to humans, and that's what they want to do, and that's going to be a big part of it. So on the one hand, you do need to sell to the AI, you need to give it the context and the images, but on the other hand, in terms of the written content, you do need to have something which makes sense for a human, that it can read as a intelligent being, and provide in search.
Yeah. So one other thing, Max. So obviously, all the search results currently with the existing algorithm, they're not being influenced only by what the seller provides, but there's also Q&A on the PDP, there's videos and things like that. So how does Cosmo?
It factors all of this in hugely. So, I don't know how scalable this is, but I would recommend sellers to have their customers ask questions, and then the questions that they want to ask, and then answer them in depth on their listing. And that is going to, without a doubt, help Rufus and Cosmo understand the Q&A. What material is this? How durable is this? All these questions that your customers are asking you. You want that on your Amazon listing, 100%.
So what I'm hearing really at the end, I just want to dumb it down, because we've been in Amazon space long time. So I've been doing this long time, and I'm also an engineer by training, so it's hard for me to speak the real basic language. But if I could try to dumb it down, this is more about providing authentic, contextual content for individual listings.
Yes.
Then focusing on keywords.
Yes.
Because that content you provide, and by the way, that content could be in the form of what you provide with titles, bullets, whatever, your pictures, not necessarily for targeting the shopper to get them to convert because they see themselves in the picture, but actually for AI to interpret the picture, make it part of the search. In addition to which, what is on the PDP in terms of Q&As or videos or anything that is authentically demonstrating what this product is about, all that will get sucked into the system that will interpret that and then distill it down to what the shopper is communicating to Rufus, and then showing this is what's good for you.
I think that's a fantastic summary. And where you can find for free an audit of how your ASIN is stacking up against all of that is, as we were discussing previous, we have built a free GPT. Anyone can access it. We'll link it, but you can put in your ASIN, and it will basically review all of these different elements that you just described, Nick, how well the ASIN is performing for Cosmo. And I will place a disclaimer that this is not a live GPT. It's not attached to Amazon in any way, like like we have a e-content where we have the APIs. This is a GPT that's been trained on the science papers and the best practices and understanding and data we have at e-content, which we've just uploaded to it as a one-off. As I said, this will change, but can be an interesting guide to just let you know where you're performing and spark some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, you are operating at a whole different level. So to me, you're not a normal human being. The stuff you talk and the things that you work on. So we discussed this before we started recording. So you've got a tool.
Yes.
And that tool is ChatGPT tool. First of all, you can plug in your ASIN and it will tell you what your ASIN looks like and everything else. So it's easy. Exactly. So if anybody wants to find out, just go plug in your ASIN and then find out what your listing is like in terms of its content. But more important, it also has the options to evaluate what your listing standing is in terms of Cosmo. The link for this tool is going to be in the episode notes. So anybody listening, just go look at the tool, click on it. It's free to use. There's no charge. And also Max here, you can see this guy is operating at a different level. So out to him. So this is great. Well, I mean, look, I'm curious. I'm curious to see where this goes. But you know what it is, Max? At the end of the day, I mean, there's all this talk about AI, regulating AI. Frankly, I'm against regulating. I don't care if it's the end of civilization. Let it be. I mean, civilization is doing great things, but once we're gone, who cares, right? We're gone. So it's in the meantime, what's going on? So it's all about convenience. That's what it's about. So one of the things that I always say to people is, go back to the early days of the internet. When internet first started, it spread very quickly. But one reason why it spread quickly among seniors was because, other than the fact that seniors had money, so they could buy computers and use it, but they loved being able to see their grandkids' pictures being emailed to them. So that made it very convenient. So the convenience is key. And AI is bringing convenience.
Yeah.
Overall.
I mean, I read a lot. I especially really enjoy reading from the founders from the early 90s at the start of the internet and what they were saying as they could kind of, it's super interesting and there's so many parallels because they could kind of see something big was happening. It wasn't clear exactly how it would shake up. It was kind of clear that social interactions would be changing. And back in those days, everybody was launching different social interaction apps because it was very in different ways. Somehow this was going to change. But another part of me thinks that AI is so much bigger than the launch of the internet. AI is not just some tool, right? It's not comparable in the same way. In many ways, AI is an extension of humans. And I think it's more comparable to language and how we created language as a species. And then we evolved into using language. And now we all talk and we've got, mouths and whatnot and windpipes and everything. And AI in the same way is an extension of us. It's all of our collected intelligence over, 2,000 years plus 4,000 years, however many thousand years it is, put into one or multiple machines that can then compute and work things out at a lot greater speed. So I really see AI as an extension of humanity, and it's kind of the next level for all of us. So I completely agree. I think regulating this is extremely dangerous, and confining this to a few tech companies who can afford to pay all the regulators and is
like,
extremely dangerous. It's an extension of all of us, and it's important to be democratized?
I mean, look, it's humans. Yeah, it's extension of humanity is fine, but there is the good humanity and the bad humanity, and so it's the extension of both. So regulating is I don't favor regulation at all either, mainly because the best what is that about speech? What is the best way to regulate bad speech is more speech, right? So
Yeah,
the best way to regulate AI is more AI, except on the good
100%.
side. So that's
100%. Yeah. I think it's the parallel of speech, I think it definitely extends to that as well. That it's very dangerous to start regulating that.
yeah,
Not many common sense people in favor of someone
yeah.
else deciding what is good and what is bad. That obviously leads to
Well,
bad outcomes.
I'm gonna kind of show my true colors a little bit, but that's why I always say government is it's better that it's small because
Mm.
if the government was run by some aliens that have no feelings, no egos, no nothing, and they are just machines that academically figure out what is right, what is wrong, and then run the society, I would not have any problem with government.
We could be
But
heading there.
what is government? It's human beings. So I mean, think about it. Look at any other underdeveloped country. They put their faith in the hands of another human being. What happens to that society? It doesn't really go too far.
Mm.
If the person is great, so much integrity and brilliant, well, it comes to an end. Then what happens next? Major crisis. So that's the best case scenario. So therefore, keep it small, keep it tidy, let people figure out what is right, and then get out of people's way. So that's my thinking. That means the less regulation, less this, less that, less
Mm.
the other. In this case, AI, for God's sake, technology is what's putting a man on the moon, creating all these, saving lives, extending life. It's now you want to regulate. Who is going to regulate? What makes you better than the next guy? And how do
Yeah.
I know that what you're doing today is going to continue that way, but it's not going to turn some sideways one day? So that's why I don't favor this. But anyway, that's a whole different conversation. So let's now get to know Max Sinclair a little bit. So tell us where you grew up and how you got into
Sure.
this all different next level situations.
So I grew up in London, North London, Northwest London specifically. I joined Amazon straight out of university. So it was my first, I'd say, real job. I'd previously been an entrepreneur. I started my first business when I was at school, and I had like a dog walking, gardening, babysitting kind of service business that I set up, and employed some school friends of mine to do these kind of activities in the local area. I've always been very entrepreneurial, but I went straight into Amazon when I graduated, and I stayed there for over 6 years. And basically, during that period, I had tried to start businesses on the side, including in e-commerce, different types of businesses. But I always felt that it always didn't work because I had this career and I wanted to progress and I was managing a team and blah, 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 blah. And I was ending up only being able to dedicate a few hours an evening to any side project because I would also want to see my friends and want to be dating. And, my job was, it wasn't a 9 to 5, it was a 8 till 7 or, on average kind of job. Right. So never really had any notable successes trying to do something on the side. And then along came generative AI, so Stable Diffusion, weeks after it first launched, and I could see immediately how transformative it was going to be. So quit Amazon. We hadn't raised a penny at that point, but I just felt like this was a wave, and if I missed this was a once in a generation, once in a lifetime opportunity. If I didn't jump in now, it would never happen again for me. And obviously having worked in Amazon, worked in, as you mentioned, you know, A9, IDQ, but also my last role, I was helping the big grocers to sell on Amazon 3P. So like Morrison's, Monoprix in Spain, Tegut in Germany, big sellers sell on the marketplace. There's just such a clear synergy between my co-founder's PhD in AI and this new technology, and also what all I had learned at Amazon and content and all of that stuff. So that's really where e-content is. E-commerce content is an amalgamation of that. Not the world's catchiest name, but that's kind of, we kind of had the vision of helping people to optimize their content with, you know, for AI and with AI. So yeah, that's kind of where we came from.
Okay. So, but you jumped straight to university. So, you know, some things happen in your life, doesn't matter how little you were, you remember those because they kind of
Sure.
play a big role. So in your life, so when was the first time you realized, looking back now, that what you're doing now, those were the signs that you were
Yeah,
already doing these things?
I guess, you know, if you want to go way back when, I'd always been, I don't know if you, maybe I'm a bit younger than you, Nick, but kind of like Pokemon card and like all these card tradings you'd do at school. So I'd always been from a very young age kind of um, trading with the other kids, building up the best, you know, collectibles. And then, as I mentioned, kind of did my first business at like 15, 16, you know, had to done all this stuff that you typical, trying to sell this, sell that. But first, like proper business with a website, leafleting, you know, my whole local area, dealing with, you know, adult customers, all that kind of stuff at 15. So it's always been a big part of my personality. I guess my dad, you know, he ran like bagel shops for a number of years. So he was kind of founder and a kind of entrepreneur in his way, but no longer. I think it was more my personality. Maybe it's an inherited from there, but yeah, that's kind of how I got into it all.
Kind of, you were familiar with the entrepreneurial
Well,
lifestyle.
he was, as many kind of parents who are run their own businesses often tell their kids, was very negative about it. Don't do it. Terrible idea. Really hard to make any money. You know, he never made any money throughout that period. As he told me, you know, basically, you know, broke even over 8 years or whatever it would be, kind of running bagel shops. So I think that's quite common for people whose parents are, you know, have been entrepreneurs. They always say, like, I would never say this to my kids, to be honest, because I think it's great. But that, you know, that was when I was going to quit Amazon, they were very, very, very against me.
Because it's a
Stop me.
steady job, right?
It was a great job, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you this quick story. This in Star, is it the Star Wars? I think one of the, yeah, Star Wars, Star Trek, one or the other. There is a young actor, well, a fairly new young actor, African American young actor. So he's trying to get jobs, you know, trying very, you know how it is, you know, they go forever and they're not making money, starving and living a real shabby life, and all trying to get famous and get a good role in something. And so anyway, so his mother would always tell him, when are you gonna get a real job? When are you gonna get a real job? When are you gonna get a real job? So, and of course, he always was pushing back, saying, you know, don't worry, I'm going to find something. I'll make it big. And so anyway, one day he gets offered this role in this major movie. He's over the moon, ecstatic, goes to see his mother. Hey, Ma, I was offered this big, huge role in this movie. And she goes, oh, great. Does that mean now it's going to be easier for you to go get a real job? So the mindset is always like that. So entrepreneurs are never really, I mean, I don't want to say never, but they don't really get that immediate warm and fuzzy feeling from their parents if parents have not been entrepreneurs that loved being entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, entrepreneurs who love being entrepreneurs they want their kids to be entrepreneurs.
I would be supportive, that's for sure.
Yeah. So tell us, Max, how can people reach you? What's the best way to get hold of you?
So I'm on Twitter or X, as it's called, Max Sinclair 4. I'm on LinkedIn. It's probably my most active. I'm always posting on LinkedIn. That's just Max Sinclair. I imagine you'll link the e-content website if people want to reach out through there. If you're interested and have any questions about what we talked about, let's have a chat. Happy to. Always love talking to sellers, partners, whoever.
Yeah, great. So, and also don't forget your tool.
My tool is I don't know when you'll launch this podcast, but it's become a bit of a trend. It kind of caught it went in one of the newsletters, and it kind of it's blown up on a lot of the WhatsApps, not just the one you mentioned, Nick, but a lot of the ones I'm on, people talking about it. So that's what we want, right? We want to start conversations, so it's that's exactly what we want.
It's called viral distribution.
Exactly.
Thank you. Great conversation. And thank you for being here.
Thanks, Nick.
Before I go, a quick reminder to say goodbye to your cash flow problems and claim your extra $1,500 when you qualify for $25,000 or more in funding. Go to www.runviably.com/legends and start your application today. Thank you. And this brings us to the end of another episode.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the episode, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too.